Welcome to the keynote one. So I'm Satoshi Nakamura from Nara Institute of Science and Technology. So I'm happy to introduce keynote speaker, Dr. and Professor Laurent Bessachier, and he will going to give a talk entitled Self-Supervised Representation Learning for Pre-Training Speech Systems. Please start if you're ready.
Thank you so much. And I'm very honored by this invitation to OCOCOSDA 21. Let me share my screen. And put it full screen. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, very good.
Okay, so thanks a lot again for the introduction and for the invitation. I'm going to talk today about self-supervised representation learning for speech systems, for building speech systems. So this is self-supervised learning has been addressed widely in vision and text, and it has been addressed maybe a little bit more recently for speech. And I'm going to conduct you through first an overview of this rather new domain. And then I will share my own experience on the use of self-supervised learning for speech. And I will show also in the last part that it is an opportunity to create new kind of resources, whether they are in the form of models provided to the community or a benchmark. So this is what I will talk about during the last part of this presentation. So if you have any question, do not hesitate to ask why I'm speaking and why I'm making the presentation. It's not a problem. So might be better to ask question during the talk, but you can ask after, of course, obviously. So let me first introduce what is self-supervised representation learning. So the idea is to be able to leverage a huge amount of unlabeled data for training. And generally, in this kind of approach, the targets are computed from the raw data itself, from the signal. So I like this definition from Chen et al. 2020, where they say that this is really about learning representation using some objective functions that are similar to the one used for supervised learning, but somehow the target or the labels are taken from the input itself. So the networks will perform some pretext task, or we also can call that close task, where both the input and the label will be derived from the unlabeled data. So it has been introduced for vision and quite successful, where, for instance, there are many approaches, but for instance, you can learn representation by contrasting positive pairs against negative pairs. And of course, it has been widely used in NLP since 2017, 2018, where basically we will learn representation by predicting tokens that were masked in an input sequence. So before I start to talk about speech, let me just give you maybe just one small example of such self-supervised models that has been very popular in NLP, and this is a BERT model. I guess that most of you are familiar with that. So the idea is that you can leverage a very large amount of raw text or unlabeled text in order to learn good text and word representations. So basically what is done in a model like BERT is that you feed the model with a very large amount of raw text. For BERT, it is a sequence actually of 2 sentences that is given with a specific label in the middle. And after that, what you will do is that you will mask some tokens and try to predict the masked tokens using, for instance, a full transformer architecture. Okay, so there will be one task that will, which goal will be to, sorry, to predict some masked tokens, and you may add a second task because it's possible to do a multitask self-supervised training. And for BERT, the second task is called NSP. This is next sentence prediction, where you will you will decide if the second sentence is actually the real follow-up sentence of the previous sentence, or is it a distractor sentence that was sampled randomly from the dataset. So using this kind of simple approach, you can feed the model with billions of sentences and train a model that is able to extract some very good representation. And after that, when you want to solve a specific task, whether this is a question answering, name entity recognition, or natural language inference, or whatever, generally for this downstream task, you have a limited amount of annotated data. So you will just plug on top of this BERT model that extract representation, a specific layer to solve the task. So for instance, a classification layer. And after that, you will fine-tune the whole architecture using the annotated data you have for the task. So this pre-training from raw text plus fine-tuning from annotated data is really now a state-of-the-art methodology for building NLP systems. And when I started to discover those self-supervised learning approach for speech early in 2020, I asked myself, is it possible to have the same kind of pre-training plus fine-tuning strategy for speech? And this is what I'm going to talk about today. So, but before that, again, let me just make a very quick recap on what are speech representation and what kind of speech representation has been used so far. So, of course, this is still used nowadays, but it has been mostly very popular until 2015. And actually, until 2015, this was, I would say, or until 2012, before the rise of deep learning, this was really the mainstream approach, but still used today. This is the extraction of what I would call uncrafted feature vectors, where basically you extract vector that corresponds to acoustic representation on analyzing windows that could be 20 to 30 milliseconds, and every 10 milliseconds you will extract this representation. And the kind of representation you may want to use could be filter banks, which are the signal energy in different frequency bands after you apply the Fourier transform on the short term analyzing window, or it could be Kestrel coefficients that are also very popular, or also linear predictive coefficient, LPC, that has been used widely in speech compression and speech coding, for instance. And of course, you may want to add prosodic features. So this is a very convolutional approach to extract features. But with the rise of deep learning, appeared what we could call learned representation using supervised task. So let's say that you want to solve an ASR task. You will build a full, for instance, neural architecture with in the lower layers some convolutional layers, convolutional blocks, and then somehow the latent representation after those few convolutional blocks will be considered as some meaningful speech representations. And this is a way somehow to bypass the uncrafted pre-processing that is shown above. And somehow now the pre-processing becomes part of the acoustic modeling and training. So this is also now a very straightforward approach for building speech systems. But maybe a bit less well-known is the use of representations that are then self-learned from speech, but without a supervised task. So this is really the topic of this talk today. Can we train some meaningful representation from raw speech? And I have to admit that if I accept this Zero Speech Challenge that has been organized since 2015, but its goal is a bit different because the Zero Speech Challenge is really about learning representation without supervision, but with very small amount of speech data, because somehow the organizer of this challenge want to mimic the way infants will learn speech. So somehow in the Zero Speech Challenge, there is always this idea that you have very few data to train your representation, to learn your representation. Whereas what I'm going to talk about today is really about leveraging thousands of hours of speech data, of raw speech, to obtain meaningful representation. Okay, so that's for the introduction. So if there are any questions so far, do not hesitate to interrupt me. Let me start now with a very quick overview of the approaches that appeared in self-supervised learning for speech. And to my knowledge, the first one is this work from MIT that appeared in 2019. And the idea, so it's called autoregressive predictive coding, APC. And the idea is to basically use some formalization that is very similar to language modeling. So in language modeling, for instance, you want to be able to predict, to compute the probability of a sequence, T1 until Tk, by making the product for different value of k, of P of Tk, given the history of Tk. Okay, so this is really the formalization of a language model. And the idea of APC, autoregressive predictive coding, was to say, okay, instead of having word embeddings, as we have in language model, for instance, if you deal with a neural network language model, basically the history of Tk will be represented as a RNN state after having read the sequence of embedding of T1, T2 until Tk-1. Okay, so this is a formalization of RNN. Let's say now that instead of having word or token embeddings, you have acoustic vectors or feature representations. Okay, and let's try to see if you can train an RNN to predict the next frame, the next acoustic vector, based on a history of acoustic observation. Okay, so this is exactly the same idea. So except the fact that now those Tk will be a sequence of acoustic vectors. Okay. So, but there are a few differences with the language model, and one important one is the fact that you don't have a final set of target tokens. So in language, you predict the next, in text, you predict the next token. So basically, there is a finite number of tokens, whereas when you deal with speech, or this is true also for video, you will be in the continuous space, right? So there won't be any finite number of targets. So basically, when you face this problem, what you want to solve, instead of solving a classification task somehow, where you have a finite number of outcomes, you might want to solve a regression task where there is an infinite number of outcomes. You are in continuous space. So the first difference with the RNN language model is the fact that the softmax layer will be replaced by a regression layer. And then the learnable parameter of this APC approach will be the RNN parameters and the regression layer parameters. Okay, and then there is an additional trick, because if you want to encourage this model to infer more global structure rather than local information, it might be a good idea to ask the model not to predict the frame that is right after the previous frames that are in the history, but maybe a frame that is n steps ahead of the current one. So there will be some sort of look ahead parameter, n, where you will try to predict what comes next, but what comes next with a look ahead, which is a value n, and you can maybe try to predict this for different values of n. So in the end, basically, the loss function you will try to solve to reduce when you train such a model will be the following, where basically you have the real sequence of speech frames or speech vectors, that is x, and you want to make a prediction y, and you want to basically to reduce this the difference between the prediction and the real data. So this, and then what do you use as a representation? So after training such a model, you will use a hidden state, the latent representation of the RNN, as representation, as features for downstream tasks, for instance, ASR or speech translation. So in this MIT paper, they use LSTM as a RNN. And basically, I just show here an example of results they get. So they try with two tasks, ASR and speech translation. And they compared the use of conventional log-mail filter bank features with the use of their APC and got some nice improvement for these two tasks. Okay, so that's to my knowledge, this is the first approach on massively of self-supervised learning from speech on massive amount of data. Okay, but I think it's really important to look for a few minutes on the major differences that we may face when we deal with speech instead of text. Okay, so I already said that speech is in a continuous space. So somehow, yes, you can see this on this axis of this figure where basically when we deal with speech, we are in a continuous space, whereas when we deal with text, we are more in the discrete space. There is another important thing is that when we deal with text and with token, we need to project them using embeddings, whereas this is not needed when we deal with speech because speech representation, the initial representation, are already in a vector format, right? So there is no embedding layer needed for this SSL from speech. And there is more uncertainty, as already said. So basically, with speech, I would say that we are more in this part here of the domain, whereas for text we are more here. And it is well known that when we have a lot of uncertainty, when we are in a continuous space, might be interesting to use something called contrastive methods, because you have seen maybe that for the previous approach I mentioned, APC, this is a hard task to predict exactly the exact frames using regression that comes next. Maybe an easier learning objective would be to say, okay, is the frame that I'm now observing in the future the real next frame, or is it maybe a distractor example that has been sampled from the data? So this is really the idea now behind the approach I'm going to describe now, that is called contrastive predictive coding, CPC. So the idea behind CPC, it was also introduced in 2019, is that maybe it's an easier learning objective to solve a binary classification task where you will not predict the exact next frame, but you will just say, okay, this frame I observe in the future is a real next frame, or is a distractor or negative example that has been sampled randomly from somewhere else in the signal. So we will distinguish a true future audio sample from negatives. And so this was proposed in this approach called Wave2Vec, and I'm going to call it Wave2Vec 1.0 now, because I will describe in 5 minutes another approach, which is Wave2Vec 2.0, which is a bit different. So Wave2Vec 1.0 was relying on a fully convolutional architecture. So basically, you have two main blocks of convolutional layers. The first block of convolutional layers will go from X to Z, and the second block will go from Z to C. And I'm going to describe exactly now in the next slide how this works. So as I said, you have the first convolutional blocks that will go from X to Z. It is fully convolutional, and it will extract some local latent representation. You can see this as local acoustic features, Z. But more interesting is the second block of convolutional layers that will go from Z to C. And this one will extract what I would call more contextualized representation, where basically the task will be the following. The task will be that given, for instance, this latent representation C here, to predict if a local representation Z, for instance, that is 2 frames ahead in the future, is a real one that is observed in the signal, or is it a negative? So we will solve a binary classification task. And so we will have a small loss here for k, for the look ahead parameter k equal 2, where the task again will be to predict if this latent representation is a real one in the future that we would observe, or is it a negative example? Okay, and we are not going to do that only for a single value of the look ahead parameter k, but we are going to do that for different values of the look ahead parameter k that will go from 1 to uppercase k. Okay, and then overall loss will be average over all these different small losses. Okay, and so our interesting question is, how do we sample the negative examples? In this approach, Wave2Vec 1.0, they are sampled uniformly from the current speech signal that is analyzed. But there are probably much better way to sample the negatives here. And so this architecture was fully convolutional, and they got some interesting results on ASR as well, much better than using filter bank or MFCCs. Okay, so after that, and this almost the end of my introduction on the SSL approaches. After that, there were many follow-up approaches. For instance, this one called Problem Agnostic Speech Encoder from University of Montreal. They use actually different self-supervised learning tasks. So you have seen that in BERT, for instance, when I mentioned BERT, there are 2 different SSL tasks. One is next sentence prediction, and another one is mask language modeling. So same for speech. You could imagine having many different self-supervised tasks, some denoising objectives, for instance, and this is what was done with this approach. And they show that using several self-supervised learning tasks is good to extract some very robust representation for speech, for building speech systems. So you can look at this paper if you're interested. And then, of course, because the architecture I mentioned so far were either based on RNN or based on CNN, but with the rise of transformer, of course, we have seen approaches using transformer architecture like this one, SpeechXLNet. And also, as you have seen, the self-supervised tasks, as I mentioned earlier, were about predicting what comes next. So I would say that you had a left context and you were predicting what comes next, what's in the future, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You can also use bidirectional encoders and just mask some part of the speech utterance and try to predict using not only the past, but also using the future. So these were the approach that are described here based on bidirectional encoders. And so I'm going to just to give you a very quick overview of 2 approaches that I consider that as state-of-the-art nowadays. The first one is Wave2Vec 2.0, and the other one is UBERT. So let me just give you a very quick overview of these 2 approaches before I share my own experience on using those systems. So first, let's talk about Wave2Vec 2.0. So we have seen Wave2Vec 1.0, where there was this fully convolutional architecture. So 2.0, the new increment of Wave2Vec, you can see here that for the context encoder, so the second block, the CNN architecture is replaced by the transformer architecture. So this is the first difference. Now, instead of having CNN blocks for extracting the context representation, we have a transformer block. Second difference, the latent local acoustic representation will be quantized. So we will go in a discrete space here, and there will be a quantization, and also this quantization is trained jointly using, for instance, Gumbel softmax functions to extract the representation. And the loss is the same, it's a contrastive loss. I forgot to say when I presented Wave2Vec 1.0 that what is used as features, for downstream speech task is this latent context representation. So these vectors, okay? So these are the two differences. So we discretize the local latent representation, and we use transformer instead of CNN for the context block. Okay, so this was introduced in 2020, and again, mostly experimented for ASR. And now in 2021, it's another increment on top of this Wave2Vec 2.0. We have uBERT, and there are a few differences between uBERT and Wave2Vec 2.0. So this is a similar architecture with CNN plus transformer, but you have seen that for Wave2Vec 2.0, we were using the contrastive loss, whereas here, what is going to be done is that since we have this discretization of the latent acoustic representation, they can be considered as symbols, for instance. And if they are considered as symbols, we can just use something extremely similar to BERT and try to mask some of those symbols and try to reconstruct them at the output using transformer. So basically, in uBERT, we, instead of using the contrastive loss, we will use a cross-entropy loss of BERT. And another subtle difference is the fact that the discrete targets are built for a separate clustering process in uBERT, whereas it was jointly done in Wave2Vec 2.0. And third difference is the fact that we may want to do a few more iterations. So when we train this first model, we end up with network parameter to extract the local representation plus their discrete versions. But after one training iteration of the model, we may want to recompute the quantization and make this several times, like 3 times, for instance, and update the discrete speech unit each time the model is better trained. And it has been shown as well that it's a way to slightly improve the result. Also, the very large version, the X-large version of uBERT is much bigger than Wave2Vec 2.0 because it has almost 1 billion parameters. Actually, this is another difference with text. We have seen that with text, people have built some models with 100 billion parameters. So far, I'm not aware of a speech system that has been built beyond this size of 1 billion parameters. This is probably a very interesting to train, to see if this model scale to a much larger amount of parameters. Okay, so I'm done with this introduction, and for the remaining 20 minutes, I'm going to share my own experience on using those SSL approaches. So do not hesitate if you have questions. Otherwise, I will go over this. Yes.
I have one question, Laurent. So
sure.
could you talk a little bit more about the acoustic unit discovery system? Like, what is your what is the effect that it has using like a more how to say bigger cluster than small ones? Because I think in the paper they do like an ensemble, and they say that each one learn like a kind of different level of representations, right?
Yeah. So okay. So if your question is how many, for instance, discrete unit do we learn? From my experience, I think it's generally several hundred units, or maybe 1,000, not really more than that. And in terms of interpretation of these units, can we see them as phonemes in context? I'm not sure. I'm not really. I know that in the Zero Speech Challenge, people have tried to interpret those units that are extracted without any supervision. But again, the Zero Speech Challenge is very specific to low resource.
Ooh. Oh, its connection was lost.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, hello.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened. I was disconnected. Let me go back to my presentation.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Not yet. Yes, now we can see that.
Okay,
Yes.
so the question was about those representations. So I think, yeah, it's difficult to interpret those representation. Could be something like phonemes in context, but I'm not aware of many approaches that try to interpret this representation. And in your question, there was also something about the hierarchical representation. I'm not aware of this kind of approaches. So far, probably there is a lot to do in finding optimal number of discrete units and try to analyze them and this kind of thing, definitely. So now I'm going to share my experience, and let me first describe some work we have done for Interspeech 2020 last year, and this was about end-to-end speech translation. And what we wanted to do is to try to see if this self-supervised learning representation was somehow helpful to extract features for speech translation. And we thought that speech translation would be a good candidate because somehow this is a medium resource task, I would say. For speech translation, you just find a few hundred of translated speech, whereas for speech transcription, you can find 1,000 or several thousand hours of transcribed speech. So I would say that end-to-end speech translation is a medium resource task. We were in the framework of end-to-end speech translation, so directly translate from the speech in the source language to text in the target language. And we wanted to investigate the possibility to leverage unlabeled speech for this task. And at that time, we used Wave2Vect 1.0 or the CPC-based approach, so the fully convolutional architecture I described earlier. We believe that this might be especially relevant for speech translation because, for instance, there are some languages, oral languages, where you can actually collect a large amount of raw speech. So this is good for SSL learning, but generally you have a very small amount of raw speech. So let me describe what we did. So pretty quickly, we have a very straightforward speech translation, end-to-end speech translation architecture based on encoder-decoder with attention, and the encoder was a hybrid CNN and LSTM encoder. The decoder had two LSTM layers, and we used Banano's attention. And basically, we contrast the use of conventional features like filter banks with the use of Wave2Vect features, so CPC features. But as the dimension of this feature is much bigger, in order maybe to do something that would be a more fair comparison, we reduce the dimension using a linear layer plus ReLU of those initial Wave2Vect features to the same dimension as the filter bank. And the rest of the architecture was remained untouched. And in addition, we investigated the possibility to use this normalization of the feature, which is MVN, mean and variance normalization. So this is just about normalizing this feature vector sequences. And at that time, we experimented on English speech to Portuguese text parallel corpus, which is called AO2. It is made up of 280 hours, but we made some different partition in order to simulate low resource scenarios. Okay, so let's have a look to the loss to the learning curves of those training of those models. And especially, let's look at the learning curve in low resource scenarios when we have only 28 hours of translated speech to train the model, or 56 hours of translated speech. And when in blue, you can see the filter bank learning curves, which are not very good. And in red, you can see the use of Wave2Vec features. First, let's look at what's in red, in green first. In green, you have the use of the Wave2Vec features with or without normalization. So the dotted lines are without normalization and the plain lines are with normalization. So Wave2Vec improve on top of filter banks and normalization help. And then what we have done as well, because the Wave2Vec model, I didn't mention that, but this Wave2Vec model was trained on LibreSpeech English. So it was trained on 1,000 hours of raw speech. And in the meantime, our data set was a bit different because it was a how-to data set. So what we did as well is that we tried to improve the self-supervised model by adding a few iterations of self-supervised training using the how-to dataset itself. So you can see that as some sort of adaptation in a self-supervised mode of the model itself. And this adaptation is what you see when you go from green to red. Okay, so especially in low resource scenario, it seems that the Wave2Vec feature were much better than the filter bank feature. Even here, we can observe this here. So in terms of blue score, in this low resource scenario that you can see here, yes, using Wave2Vec was much more beneficial than filter bank. But at that time, when we were using the full data set, like 280 hours of training data, so the difference between Wave2Vec and filter bank was actually not so big. It was actually, it actually disappeared. Even if when we did some ensembling between these two kinds of representation, we get further improvements. So at that time, our takeaways was the fact that using Wave2Vec or self-supervised learning representation was beneficial only in low resource condition for speech-to-text translation tasks. Let me now mention a second experience I had with the use of this low resource of this self-supervised learning. We try to work on low resource or very low resource speech transcription, so very low resource ASR. This work was done after a course I gave in June 2020 at the master of at this master in Africa, and basically I also gave a lab on collecting speech data using mobile phones and on developing quickly an ASR system based on this. And during the lab, we tried to leverage pre-trained SSL models. And after the lab, 3 students continue working remotely with me, and we made this paper that has been published at a workshop at Africa NLP workshop at ESEL. And basically, we worked on 3 languages, Wolof, Ga, and Somali, but we had extremely low resource condition because only 2 hours of transcribed speech were collected. So 1 hour was used for fine-tuning the model and 1 hour was used for evaluation. So basically, the question we asked here was, is it possible to use a pre-trained model, for instance, but the pre-trained model available at that time was trained on English, LibreSpeech, or even bigger corpus, and adapt this pre-trained, this speech encoder plus classification layer or plus phoneme recognition layer with only 1 hour of fine-tuning. So does that work? So do those SSL models transfer cross-lingually, actually? This was our question. We followed the methodology of this 2019 paper from Khan et al. So basically, we use the pre-trained wave-to-wake model, so CPC, contrastive predictive coding again. And this time it was pre-trained on 60K hours of English speech, so huge amount of speech, huge amount of speakers. And then we tried to fine-tune. So we added a CTC classifier on top of it. So we added a phone classifier, phone layer on top of it, plus train it with the CTC loss. Sorry. And we tried to see if it works well for the 3 African languages. Actually, we also had access to 20 hours of Wolof. So we also pre-trained a model on 20 hours of Wolof, but as you can see, this is a very different amount of data compared to the English data we had for SSL training. But we wanted to see if having these 20 hours of Wolof, that is one of the target language, would help as pre-training. The result of this experiment is that it's better to have a lot of data in a different language to pre-train the speech system, because as you can see here, so these are word error rate we had here, so 30%, 26%, 34%. The best word error rate were obtained using the pre-trained model, pre-trained on English. The parameters were frozen, and we used the features to train our CPC-based architecture on only 1 hour of speech in Wolof, Somali, and Ga. And using a pre-trained model on Wolof, but only 20 hours of Wolof, was not really helpful. We also tried to fine-tune the English model with Wolof, and it didn't work either. And this is a surprising results, because we would have hoped that maybe this pre-trained model fine-tuned on Wolof would have been at least better on Wolof, but this was not what we observed. So somehow this is a mixed result where, okay, it seems that those self-supervised representation can transfer cross-lingually, but those self-supervised models are very data greedy, so it's important to give them a lot of data. And just having a few dozen of hours in the target language is definitely not enough. So for the last part of this presentation, I would say maybe the remaining 10 minutes, to leave 10 minutes for questions, I'm going to talk about a resource we have built based on these self-supervised learning models. And so this is a project that started 1 year ago, and it started from the following observation. After reading many papers in self-supervised learning from speech, I noticed that most of the models were experimented or were assessed on different data sets. So for instance, it was impossible for me to have a fair comparison between autoregressive predictive coding and contrastive predictive coding and other bidirectional approaches, because all of these papers were, they were all working on English, but they were all experimenting on different downstream tasks with different protocols. So for those of you that are familiar with NLP, those pre-trained models such as BERT, now there are many benchmarks to evaluate them in a fair way. For instance, maybe you have heard about GLUE benchmark or SuperGLUE benchmark for English, and there are similar benchmarks for French and for Korean now, and so on. But at that time, like 1 year ago, nothing was existing for speech. So we decided with a few colleagues from France, from academic lab in France, to build such a benchmark in order to evaluate, to benchmark self-supervised model from speech in a scientifically good and fair way. So and we decided not to target English as a first start, but to target French, because we had access to a lot of raw speech in French and to a lot of downstream tasks in French. So we decided to start with French, and we call this Le Benchmark. Okay, so we published this first work at Interspeech 2021, and very recently, we had an extended version of the papers that was accepted at the NeurIPS 2021 specific track on dataset and benchmark. So I'm going to talk about this for the remaining 10 minutes before wrapping up and taking some questions. So first, we collected a very large speech corpus, and when I talk about speech corpus here, I talk about raw speech. So basically, we collected 3 speech corpora, one corpora of 1,000 hours of read speech, which is gender balance, one corpus of 3,000 hours of read, broadcast, and spontaneous speech, and one larger corpora of 7,000 hours of read, broadcast, spontaneous, and professional speech. And the 7K corpus contains the 3K corpus, which itself contains the 1K corpus. And all of these corpora were carefully sourced with detailed metadata and licenses so that we can really know what we put inside our self-supervised learned model. Okay, so we gathered this very large speech collection, and after that, we trained those Wave2Vec 2.0 architecture, because at that time Hubert was not published yet. So we took what we consider as really the state of the art at that time, which was Wave2Vec 2.0. And we trained 2 different architectures, a base one and a larger one with more parameters, but both of them are definitely below 1 billion parameters. And we trained these 2 base and large architecture from 1K, 3K, and 7K hours of speech. And this is very costly to train, especially the biggest architecture with a large amount of data. This is quite costly. So we couldn't do that. Well, at that time, I was still in League, and now I'm at Naver, but at League, we do not have access to a very large cluster. So we got a grant and benefited from the CNRS Janzé supercomputer, which is a low carbon data center situated in France. And after training all those models, because this is really expensive to train this model, we shared them to the speech community on a Hugging Face, a transformer library. And so you can access to all the pre-trained speech encoder. And for instance, the large 7K model was already downloaded more than 2,000 times. So let's now see how we assessed those models. So we decided to assess those models for different tasks. So hybrid CALD-based automatic speech recognition, end-to-end ASR, SLU, spoken language understanding, automatic speech translation, and automatic emotion recognition. So we use those models as feature extractors for all these tasks, and we assess these tasks. And basically, we also wanted to share our scripts in order to be able to reproduce those experiments. So all of this is shared as well. And I'm not going to go over all the tasks, but let's just give you let me give you an example on the spoken language understanding task. So we use a corpus, a French corpus called Media. So this is a task for French. So basically, this is a sequence labeling task. You start from the speech, and you want to generate a sequence of semantic labels. And we evaluate this with a concept error rate, because this is a SLU task, end-to-end. And here you can see, so always the same architecture is used. Let's ignore the first 2 lines, which are previous works, but let's look at the different blocks. So this first block here is using spectrogram as feature. And then we are using Wave2Vec features, but trained on English. So this is again about the cross-lingual transfer. We wanted to see what is the performance of models trained on English and used as feature extractor for a French task. Now these are the Wave2Vec features using our model trained on French, using base or large architecture, or using small or medium size corpus. And then we're also experimenting with a multilingual pre-trained model, because meanwhile, some Wave2Vec models trained on multilingual data appeared as well, and this one was released by Facebook. It is trained on 53 different languages. And what we can see here is that all the Wave2Vec, whether they are in French, English, or multilingual, so outperform the spectrogram representation. But it seems to be beneficial to have the in-target language when you pre-train the model, because the French is better than multilingual, which is itself better than the English. So this is a kind of experiment we made extensively for many different tasks in our interspeech plus NeurIPS paper. So let me just, I'm not going to go over all the results, but let me just summarize what we obtained. And if you want to know more, you can look at our NeurIPS paper. So basically, these SSL self-supervised learning models improve over conventional features for all tasks. We really observed this. But the larger improvements were obtained for medium resource tasks, which are spoken language understanding and speech translation. Smaller improvements were observed for ASR, for instance, which are much more resource tasks. Of course, since we were dealing with French speech tasks, having French SSL models was much better than multilingual model, which was itself better than English models. And of course, training on 3K and 7K hours of speech was better than training on 1K, but the differences between 3K and 7K was not that big, I have to admit. So I'm not sure that scaling with more data is that interesting. Probably what is more interesting is to scale with more parameters in the pre-trained models. And we also did something that was quite interesting. Unfortunately, I don't have time to detail the results, but for instance, when you address non-ASR tasks, such as spoken language understanding and automatic speech translation, what you could do is to fine-tune the SSL model for an ASR task, and then use the representation of those fine-tuned model for downstream tasks that are not ASR, such as SLU and AST. And it was shown also very beneficial. So to our knowledge, this was the first time someone tried this to first pre-train a model with a self-supervised objective. Then in a second step, fine-tune the model with the ASR supervised objective, and then use this representation for non-ASR tasks, such as SLU and AST. And our results were mixed with the emotion recognition task with a lot of variability, and probably we need more investigation for this. So let me conclude. This is the last slide of my presentation. The takeaways of this talk. So self-supervised representation learning from speech is useful, and basically what you do when you do that is you use the future and the past context. It really allows, from my experience, to adopt the pre-training plus fine-tuning methodology that has been very popular in NLP, but less popular in speech. It reduces the dependence on labeled data for building speech system, especially for medium resource tasks, and especially also for low resource scenarios with few annotated data. This is a super rapidly evolving subdomain. We have moved very quickly from autoregressive predictive coding, contrastive predictive coding to mask reconstruction models. We have moved from convolutional architecture to transformer architecture. Huge raw speech dataset were recently released. Until a few weeks, there were not shared benchmark. So there is a concurrent project called Superb Benchmark. I've seen that they organize a shared task, and we have talked with them as well. I think this is driven by notably Shinji Watanabe, who introduced this superb benchmark also. But we believe that our Le benchmark is interesting because it addresses a different language. And somehow this is now something equivalent to Glue or Superglue, but for speech. And if people are interested to build such benchmark for a different language than French and English, I would be very happy to reach out and to discuss. And if you want to know more about really what we did in Le Benchmark, you can check our paper here. So I'm done, and I hope we can have a bit of time for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much. A great talk, and it's very challenging task. So before going to the QA, I missed to introduce Laurent, and he's currently a principal scientist at Naver Lab Europe from January this year. Before that, he was a full professor at the University of Grenoble-Alpes. From 2009, he led the natural language processing and the speech processing group. So he has a lot of experience, and he has a lot of contribution to speech recognition, and also speech translation, many areas. So he's a very popular. So that's why I didn't feel that I have to introduce you. So.
No problem, no problem.
Okay. So before going to QA, I would like to confirm only one thing. There are many people are waiting for the question, but so if this is a technique to develop the feature extraction, right? So in that sense, for example, in ASR, so we use this representation to train the later CTC or encoder decoder model to do like speech recognition, for example. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. But you have two. You basically have two possibilities. First is to keep the model frozen. So basically, those wave-to-wake architecture can be used as a feature extractor, and then you will use a latent representation as features instead of MFCC. But the other possibility you have is just to plug. If you want to solve an ASR task, for instance, you can plug specific layers to solve the ASR task on top of this architecture, which can be seen as a speech encoder. And then when you do the fine-tuning with a transcribed speech, you can fine-tune the whole architecture. So you have also, it's like in text, you have these two possibilities to freeze the architecture and use it as feature extractor, or to do the full fine-tuning. I have to admit that in the experiment, in most of the experiment I described here, it was frozen. Everything was frozen. Why? It's because this architecture can be quite big, and the full fine-tuning of the model can be a bit tricky. You need to have access to a good cluster for doing this, but it's I mean, nothing prevents you to do this. If you are interested in the NeurIPS paper, just for ASR, we did the full fine-tuning, and it was slightly beneficial to do it for the end-to-end approach. But for instance, we did that with the Kaldi hybrid model as well. So for Kaldi, there is no way to do the full fine-tuning, or well, we didn't find out a way to do it. So we were just frozen. The architecture was just frozen in that case.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand. Okay, so now please unmute your mic and make a question. Haicho, do you have?
Let me ask the first question. Laurent, thank you very much for the wonderful talk. My question is, yes, it improves all the pre-trained model, helps all the downstream tasks. And what actually the pre-trained model learns? If you learn from French, it helps English, then it is not learning the language. It learns something else. So what does it learn?
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think there's still a lot to do in that direction to understand that. Here is my own take about this. First, it sees a lot of speech from a lot of speakers. So I think it learns to extract some meaningful representation that are somehow well normalized among speakers. So actually, in this 2020 paper, we did, what is that? Yeah, we did some sort of experiments to probe our model. So we exactly wanted to answer to your question. So what do we learn? So what we did is that we took these Wave2Vec models and tried to probe it to use it for very small downstream tasks such as phone discrimination on time it or speaker clustering and stuff like this. And what we learned is that at least for speaker, for instance, so basically it seems to be more robust to speaker variability because it has seen a lot of speakers. So I would say I don't know yet what this model really learned, but I know that it's able to encode speech from many speakers. It has seen many speakers. It has seen a lot of speech. So even if it's a different language, it is somehow able to extract some meaningful representation of speech. And those representations are quite speaker independent, I would say. This is my take, but probably much more is needed to understand better what's going on there. Mm-hmm. And it may be also, compared to MFCC, it extracts some representations that are more contextualized, more the span is a bit longer. So when we extract MFCCs, we extract them on windows of 20 or 30 milliseconds, whereas this model, with the fact that you will try to predict what's come next with these look-ahead parameters, maybe you extract representations that are meaningful at the level of maybe 100 milliseconds, so maybe more global representation.
If it's possible, I ask a second question. So do you also try on French downstream tasks?
Yes, so basically this is exactly what we did on this Le Benchmark work, where all our downstream tasks were French, and then we tried to use a pre-trained model on English or on French or on multilingual data, and definitely the best result were obtained when we match and when we pre-train on French.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's already time, but maybe I can take one more question. No?
How you happen to try these models, how they transfer for French if you try to do model compression, because they usually are like very highly over-parameterized?
Yes, that's a very good question. So we don't try any model compression, but I guess this is an interesting thing to do, especially with model like Hubert, which are now million parameters. Probably, so it has been shown that yes, they improve a lot for ASR task. But if you want, I would say, an efficient model, then probably you will have to compress those models, and the impact of compression of this model is yet to be evaluated. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I think I have to close this keynote session. You still have questions, please enter the Slack, and so that the Laurent will answer to your question. Is it okay?
Sure.
So,
and you can also reach out with me directly by email. There's no problem.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's
Naval Lab Professor Bessasius Lab is recruiting interns, and
yes,
you can contact him.
Yes, definitely. We start activity in speech actually, because before that we are this lab mostly work in NLP and machine translation, but we as I arrived, we will be starting speech activity very soon. So yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. Very happy to get this talk.
Okay, so let's thank Laurent. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for all the questions and invitation.
So now I would like to close this keynote session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.